Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our free webinar on Agile and Scrum Fundamentals, your essential guide to success. So again, my name is May Thomas, the Senior Marketing Specialist of DISS, and I will be your moderator for today's event. So today we will have an exciting session, okay, line up for you where we will explore the fundamentals of Agile and Scrum methodologies and how it is going to be essential for the success in today's dynamic business environment. But first, okay, I am thrilled to announce actually that all participants for today's event, okay, will be receiving an e-certificate of attendance, acknowledging your participation in this valuable learning experience. And, okay, we will also be giving you 30% off on the full course. Okay, so details on this will be given to you after the event. All right. Okay. Now, before we begin, just a few reminders. Okay, I'll just make this short. Okay, just to ensure that we have a smooth webinar experience for everyone. So, number one, just make sure that your microphone is muted throughout the webinar to minimize background noise. If you have any questions during the presentation, just type it in the chat bot or raise a hand in the chat, and then we will address them during the Q&A session. And also, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, just let us know in the chat bot and we will assist you. All right. Okay. Now, again, I will not make this long. Let me introduce our speaker for today, who brings over 17 years of project management consulting and training experience. And he has worked in various industries such as telecom, oil and gas, power, construction, and engineering. And he also conducted numerous training courses and on project management. Okay, so without further ado, let's all welcome Mr. Adel Algascari to the virtual stage. I'm sorry, Mr. Adel. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, May. Thank you.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to have you all in this webinar. On behalf of the ISS, welcome all of you to Agile and Scrum Foundation Understanding webinar. Before everything, let me introduce myself briefly. This is Adel Algascari, your presenter in this webinar. I have Bachelor of Science in Industrial Engineering and Master in MBA. I got my PMP certificate in 2010, and now I am the authorized PMP instructor attested by the US Project Management Institute. I have some other certificates in project management, such as the PMI ACP, Agile Certified Practitioner from the same institute from the PMI, and Pre-Institute Practitioner from the UK Excellence. Also, I want to draw your attention to other certificates that I mentioned here, such as the PSM, Professional Scrum Master, because it is related to our webinar. What is the Scrum and what is the Scrum Master, and who is certified as the Scrum Master? Maybe it is another question for you. Also, from the Scrum organization, from the same institute, I have the PSPO, or Professional Scrum Product Owner, and Professional Agile Leadership, or PAL. As Mrs. May told you, I have been working for more than 17 years as the project manager, PMO manager, and freelance instructor. And in my whole career path, I focus on the project management. Let's open the topic and discussion with a simple question. How we do the planning or project, or how we plan our project. Generally, if we are working in the usual projects such as the oil and gas, construction, and other projects that include the construction phase, our planning attitude is like this. At first, we finalize the scope of the project or deliverable of the project with the client. It's going and fulfilling during the negotiation and discussion between the parties, including the contractor, engineer, and the client. And finally, as the scope defined, we sign a contract between the parties. After having the contract and issuing the contract by the client, generally the vendor or the subcontractor create the work breakdown structure, or WBS. It means we categorize our deliverable in the hierarchy structure. And after having the WBS as a base and backbone of our project, we do the planning in advance and start plan the whole of the project in advance. This is what we are usually doing in the project that including the construction phase, or in the project that we can forecast the next step or the phases of the project. But if we don't know the scope of the project, how we can do the planning in advance? If we have lots of the change during the project implementation, how we can do the planning in advance? If the scope and deliverable of the project is not knowing well for all parties, how we can do the project planning in advance? Then this is where the agile start to comes and start to implement. If I want to divide the project management knowledge to a spectrum, in one side of a spectrum, we have the predictive project management methodology and standards. And in another side of a spectrum, as you can see in the red one, we can adaptive and we have the adaptive project management methodology and standards. Let's understand this picture to get the whole story about the project management knowledge. And then we focus on the agile and we will continue with the Scrum. In the predictive project management style, methodology, and standards, the project stakeholder and teams knowing the project steps, it means that we already do the same project or similar project. For example, we have constructed lots of the bridge, we have done lots of the power plant, and we know the oil and gas platforms. Then, by having the beforehand and previous knowledge, experience, and knowing the steps of the project, we define the scope of the project and deliverable. Then we will continue by doing the planning in advance. And in whole of the project life cycle, the project teams do their best to minimize the change and do the project in 100% conformance with the initial plan. It's called as the predictive project management or predictive project planning. If I want to mention any standard from this part, I can call the PMBOK version, Project Management Body of Knowledge, the sixth version and the earlier version of the PMBOK that divided in the predictive project management style. Also, some people call this style of the project management as the waterfall. Why they call this waterfall? Because of the path of the water that drooping down from the waterfall cannot back ahead to the initial step of the waterfall. And this project is doing like this. You divided your project to phases and completing the second phase and start the second phase after completion of the first phase. And the handover of the second phase will transfer to the third phase. And then you will continue with the fourth and blah, blah, till end of the project. This is why we call this as the waterfall project. But if in another side of the spectrum, if you cannot define the scope of the project completely, or the scope of the project is unknown for you, you are doing something new in IT industry, in research and development, or in marketing. In any industry, it can happen. But you are doing something new that no one is experienced on it. No one have done such a this project. It's going to create something completely new. For example, let me take an example. When you want to design a new application for your cell phone device, for example, for doing a service for your customer, it's not any experience about the new application. No one know how we should do the first step. What is the deliverable of this first step? How we can transfer to the second step? And completely what is the second step? No one knows that. Then in this project, instead of completing the planning for whole of the project, we would prefer to divide the project to the short period of time. This short period of time generally include between 2 weeks to maximum 1 month, between 2 to 4 weeks. Then we call it this time period or time frame as the sprint, and we repeat the sprint many times. It means instead of planning for the long period of time, we would prefer to do the planning for short period of time because of the lackage of information. And after having the more information, after getting the feedback from our customer, and after knowing the more about our project, its scope and deliverable, we will do the next sprint or next period by having and adding the another information and repeat this 1 month or 2 weeks, time by time, till end of the project or fulfilling the satisfaction of the customer. We call these projects as the adaptive project management. And generally the business call it as the agile project management. Then the agile project management is another type of the project management that the scope of the project is undefinable at the beginning stage of the project, or the change that will occur during the project implementation and planning will be huge, and you cannot do the planning and keeping on stick on the initial plan to complete the project. Generally, some people call the waterfall project as traditional, but my advice to all of you is to prevent the traditional, because the traditional means that such things that old-fashioned or out of usage. But the waterfall project is still on use till we will have the construction project. At least in the market, we will use the waterfall project management. Then both of the waterfall and agile project management are useful to fulfill and complete the projects, but it depends on the characteristic and the specification of your project. Let's go ahead and understood and see what we had in the PMBOK, project management body of knowledge, that I take an example of the waterfall project for PMBOK standard. In sixth version of the PMBOK and the earlier version, it's not happened in seventh version. In sixth version of the PMBOK and the earlier versions, we had the 10 knowledge areas. It means that based on the advice and recommendation of the standard, if you want to do a project management, you have to manage these 10 areas. These 10 areas rapidly, including the integration, scope, time, cost, quality, resource, communication, risk, procurement, and stakeholder management. And if you have done these 10 knowledge area and manage all these 10 knowledge area, based on the recommendation of a standard, you have done the complete project management. And in the other page of the standard, you had these metrics. It's including and create the conjunction between these 10 knowledge areas in rows and the project management phases in columns. The general management phases, including the initiation, where the project ignite, the planning, where all the project passing and create the plan of them, implementation, all the projects should implement, create their deliverable, monitor and control. Everything that is implementing must monitor and control. And because of the temporary characteristic of the project, all the project will finish someday, and we have to finish and close the project in closing phase. And this conjunction and matrix gave us 49 processes in the PMBOK sixth version. Again, I want to emphasize that it's coming from the sixth version, not the seventh version of the PMBOK. And in the previous version, we had the same scenario and the same structure for the project management. That was all things that the waterfall project management wants to told us. But in 2001, something happened. In 2001, 17 developers in IT industry gathered in the Utah of the US and talked about the new design and the new development of the project management style. They told that the predictive project management styles is very good and useful, but it's told that you have to plan in advance and stick on your plan and reject the change from anyone and continue your project based on the initial plan. It cannot reflect and fulfill and satisfy our customer in IT business. Then we have to create a new design, a new methodology for project management. Then in 2001, initially, the agile project management started and created. But before that, we had some frameworks that following this statement, but not officially. Then the beginning of the agile project management back to 2001. It means the agile project manager is a young person with 23 years old. Then we have to complete this structure and scenario step by step, as we have done till now. Let me back to the industrial work and knowledge work. In this slide, I call the predictive as the industrial and adaptive as the knowledge work. In industrial work, the work is visible. You are going to construct a road, a bridge, a power plant, anything else that is tangible. But in the knowledge works, the work is invisible. Generally, you are doing a service. You are designing a platform. You are designing a website. You are doing the research and development. You are creating the new application for your cell phone. It is intangible works. Generally, in industrial work, work is stable, and in the knowledge work, work is changing because of the lack of knowledge, as I told you, and the progressive elaboration characteristic of the project. It means every step ahead, you will gain more information about your project, and your knowledge will complete day by day. And in such these things, you have lots of the change every day, at least every day. I want to says that every hour, but at least every day you have the new change in your work that is knowledgeable works. And in the industrial world, the work is more structured with favor decision. You already plan the works and just assign the work to the people and monitor and control and ask them about the implementation of work. But in the knowledge world, you cannot any planning. You have not any planning to assign the people. Instead of assigning the people and command and control and monitor them, you would prefer to give them more authority to take the decision and to have the creation and innovation. In the industrial world, you define the task, as I told you, by command and control, assign the responsibility and task to person. And here in the knowledge world, the people must understand the task. You have a requirement and only a requirement. How you want to fulfill and complete this requirement, it is up to you. We cannot define the step and task for you. It is up to you to find a way to fulfill this requirement. And as I told, the industrial work following the command and control, and in knowledge work or agile project management, we give more authority to people to decide about the way of the work, not about the scope of the project, about the way of the work. And in the industrial work, we generally focus on the right answer. I already assign you the task and just need you to answer me how you want to complete this task. But in the knowledge and agile project, the project teams focus on the right question. The right question means that we have to at first understand and ask how we can do this task and how we can fulfill this requirement. One of the bold specification of the agile project is in the delivery of the outcome of the project or the deliverable of the project. Generally, the deliverable of the waterfall project will finalize and hand over at the end of the project. For example, when you construct a bridge, by 1 meter and 1 meter, you did not hand over the bridge to the client. You have to complete whole of the bridge. You have to do the finishing work and cleaning work, and you complete whole of the bridge as a whole to the customer at the end of the project. But here, instead of waiting the customer, for example, for 2 years to give them the update or 3 years to give them the website or application, we give them the incremental delivery. What it means, let me take an example. You want to draw the Mona Lisa drawings. Instead of waiting the customer for 2 years to give them the whole of the Mona Lisa, we would prefer to give them the head of the Mona Lisa or part of the Mona Lisa at first 6 months. It means after 6 months, we hand over part of the work to the customer. The customer start to utilizing the project outcome. They will send us the feedback about their requirement, about their experience, about the project, and we will continue to complete the project in the next phase or next iteration. Then in the second release, we will have a Mona Lisa with the right hand, added some features to the initial release. And after a while, we complete the Mona Lisa and hand over the complete Mona Lisa to the customer. How is it possible in industry? Let me take a real example from the industry. Please look at your cell phone devices. The industries don't wait us 20 years to give us a completed smartphones. They gave us the smartphone 20 years ago that only possible to send the message and have a call without any other options. Then in the next release, they added, for example, the camera to our cell phone. They added the new feature, and we are still utilizing and using the outcome and send the feedback to the providers about our requirement. In the next release, for example, they bring the screen to our cell phone devices. And after a while, they introduce the operation system and application for our cell phones. And doing these steps many times again and again and continuing, they are completing our Mona Lisa, but don't wait us to utilize the outcome or output of the project for the long time. This is the theory and the behind the behind the scene of the agile project management. What is happening behind the scene in the agile project management? In addition of the incremental, that adding the features in every release, and the release is a short period of time, not long period. By maximum, it must be less than 6 months. We have another characteristic of the iterative. In iterative, you don't add a new feature, but you increase the quality of the initial feature. For example, the quality of the camera in our cell phone. In every update and in every release of the new cell phone device, we have a better camera, the quality, the performance, and so many other things about the cameras increased. Then in addition of the new feature, the current feature stands at the higher level of the quality. It's called as the iterative. Then to sum up, in agile project management, instead of delivering whole of the deliverable as a whole at the end of the project, we do the delivering repeatedly in the short period of time by considering the incremental and iterative handover to the customer or usage of the user of the project. To understand the difference between the agile and waterfall project, please look at this famous triangle. The people may know this triangle. We know that from the initial version of the PMBOK. We have three sides in our project in this triangle. One side is the scope of the project, another side is the cost, and another side is the schedule of the project. This is the famous triangle in the project management. In waterfall project management, at first, as I told you, we finalize the contract with the customer. Then it means that we define the whole of the scope. And this scope is freezed. No one can add or delete anything from that without any negotiation or agreement. After freezing the requirement or scope of the project, we estimate the cost and schedule based on our scope of the project. For example, why we suggest we will complete this power plant in 2 years with 100 million US dollar, because we know the scope of the project. By having and knowing this scope, we estimate that completing this scope takes 2 years and costs for 100 million US dollar. And we estimate the side of the cost and schedule based on the freezing of the scope. But in Agile, we reverse this triangle. What it means? In Agile, I told you already, we divided the project in the short period of months of time. Sorry, this short period can take between 2 to 4 weeks, not more than 4 weeks and not less than 2 weeks. But it's a short period, maximum 1 month. Then you freeze your period of time to 1 month. And in other side, I look at my pocket, how many budget I have for this 1 month. It means how many features I can do in this 1 month by my own budget or available budget. It means you freeze the cost as well. And by having 1 month and the X amount of the cost or availability of resources, I can estimate how many features or scope of the project I can complete in these 1 month. Then the side of the schedule and cost consider as the constant, and the feature or the scope of the project estimated based on their availability. This is how we do the planning, general picture or big picture, how we do the planning in the agile environment. If we want to divide the agile and considering the coverage of the agile, we have the agile methodology, standard, and frameworks for products. Also, we have the agile for process, for project, and for organization. Can you take any example from the agile methodology that you know to apply on the product or process or project or organization? Have you ever heard anything about the methodologies? I'm checking the chat box. You can write it down in the chat box. Do you know anything, any agile framework about the product, process, project, or organization management? This is the brainstorming. You can say anything as you wish. No limitation and no worries about the wrong answer. Anything you heard, at least you heard the Scrum. The title of this webinar is Agile and Scrum. Then one of them can be the Scrum. But the Scrum is applying on which of them, product, project, or other ones. Let me take an example for you. My friends, you may heard the XP, Extreme Programming. This is one of the famous frameworks in Agile project management. It's generally using for the product development. Then the XP is a framework to manage the products by Agile mindset. For process, I can take the example of the Kanban. You may heard the Kanban boards, the visual boards that using for limiting the work under the process. It's an agile agile framework for managing the process. For project, most of the frameworks focus on the project management for agile. For example, the Scrum is the most famous of them. And we have another frameworks for managing the agile project. For example, DSTM is another one. And for organizational agile management, we have another frameworks. For example, I can take the example of Scaled Agile Framework or SAFe. Let me write it down in the chat box. This is SAFe. It's short of the Scaled Agile Framework, not the safety. Scaled Agile Framework is a framework for managing the agile uh, and it's a big scale framework for managing the organization based on the agile mindset. But in this webinar, we don't have enough time to go to all of them. But in the practical class, we have review all the framework that I explained for you. We will go by detail to the Scrum, XP, and also we have an introduction on a Scaled Agile framework, and also we have the detailed explanation about the Kanban. Let's back to 2001 that I told you 17 of the developers from IT industry gathered in Utah in the US to talk about the lightweight, a more lightweight framework for project management. After 2 days of discussion about the project management framework, this is the manifesto that they published at the end of that 2 day discussion. And this is the birthday and birth point of the agile management, agile project management. As you can see, this manifesto including only one paragraph or half of the page, but it is very valuable. In this manifesto of agile, this is manifesto of agile. They would prefer four things over another four things. They would prefer four things over another four things. They told that, let me show it in the next slide. In this manifesto, they told that we would prefer individual and interaction over process and tools. You know the importance of the process and tools in the waterfall project management. You have to follow the regulation, you have to follow the steps, you have to freeze every plan, you have to prevent the change, you have to minimize the change as much as possible to follow the initial plan. But they told that we want to start a new way of thinking. Then we would prefer the individual and interaction, communication and interaction between the guys and parties instead of following the process and tools. Also, they told that instead of comprehensive documentation that is usual and regular in waterfall project management, we would prefer the working software. The software that is working is the highest priority of the teams. It doesn't mean the red one is non-valuable in the agile project management. It's still valuable, but our tendency or in our privilege is the blue one or the other side of the manifesto. We would prefer the customer collaboration instead of the contract negotiation. And finally, and the fourth one, instead of following a plan that is the whole and all things in the waterfall project management, we would prefer to responding to change at the moment. This is the fourth thing or fourth new value that we want to establish to create a new way of thinking. As you can see, this manifesto only consider and explain and define four new values for agile project management. This manifesto continued by these 17 people by email, and after a while, they published 12 principles to project management. And this is the principle of the agile project management. As you can see, I just read the title of the agile principles because I have to keep the time to have enough time for explaining by the detail, by explaining briefly the Scrum Just we want to consider 30 minutes maximum for this part. But it is very simple. If I read it, you will understand it completely. The first one, our highest priority to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. As I told you, in the agile project management, we don't wait the customer till end of the project to start utilization of the outcome of the project. We hand over to the customer in the short period of time the valuable software or the software that is working, and they will start to utilize it and send the feedback to us. It is usable for both of us. It is beneficiary for both parties, the customer and the developer. We welcome the changing requirement. You told that and you know that in the waterfall project, we prevent the change. But here we welcome the change. Even late in development, even in the near end of the project, agile process harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. In addition of the welcoming change, it says that you have to harness the change as much as possible to increase the competitive advantage of your customer. Deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. You know that what it means, the time frame and the sprint that I taught you. The third principle the fourth principle says that the business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project instead of their regular or monthly or bi-weekly project control meetings with the customer. We would prefer to work together in daily basis. It means that we maybe in some frameworks, we invite the customer to sit beside of us in our office and work with us instead of having the weekly or bi-weekly or monthly meeting with them and check the output of the project. The fifth one told that build project around motivated individual, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. As I told you, instead of command and control, we give the authority to people, we encourage them, we motivate them, and we give them the enough responsibility and the authority to decide about the works by themselves. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. It's clear that it says that instead of hiding beside of your email and laptop, we would prefer to have a face-to-face conversation with the customer. The seventh principle told that working software is the primary measure of progress. If you want to measure the progress of the project, we don't have any systems out of the working software. If your software is working, then you have the progress. If nothing is working now, you didn't have anything till now. The agile process promotes sustainable development. The sponsor, developer, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. The ninth one says that the continuous attention to the technical excellence and good design enhance agility. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. Keep it simple. Keep it simple as much as possible. The best architecture, requirement, and design emerge from the self-organization team. And the last one, at the regular interval, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. I will back to these 12 principles when I explain the Scrum process, because we have an event in the process, in the Scrum process, that happen at the end of each iteration that called as the sprint retrospective. In a sprint retrospective, all team members gather together based on these 12 principles and share their knowledge and finding and their best practices and the lessons learned generally from the previous months together, and start the next month by having and adding this information to their knowledge. Okay, let me go to this slide and explain this for you. Which methodology is better for you, agile or waterfall? This is the Stacy matrix, divided the project based on the requirement or what you have to do or scope of your project, the complexity of your requirement, and the technology or complexity of your technology in the X and Y. When your technology and requirement both are simple, you are working in the simple area or simple environment, then the waterfall is the best recommendation for you. When the technology is going to be more complicated and the requirement going to more difficult to define, you shift from the simple to complicated environment. In complicated environment, the agile is the best option for you. If one of the technology or requirement stand at the maximum level of the complexity, but the other one still remain in the middle, you are in the complex environment. And in the complex environment, you have the agile, but the customized agile. You have to customize agile based on your requirement. And if both of them stand on the highest level of the uncertainty and disagreement, you are in the anarchy environment and you neither work in the anarchy environment. Till now, we defined the mindset of the agile, and we found that the agile is a way of thinking. We saw that agile has 4 values and also 12 principles added to these 4 values. But for implementing the project and doing the work day by day, none of the values and principles told anything to us. If you want to implement and manage your project based on the agile methodologies, you need to utilize the practices or frameworks. What is the framework? We have lots of the frameworks in agile methodologies. I mentioned a few of them here. The most famous of them is the Scrum. Another one is the XP. Those are the methodologies that want to tell to you how you can manage your project in daily basis and how you have to implement your project based on the agile mindset. Kanban, DSDM, LSD, feature-driven development, and the SAFe is another example of the agile methodologies. It is not limited to this list. It is a non-limited list of the features and framework that adding every day to them, but most of the famous of them listed here. To sum up this chapter and shifting to the Scrum, we have a question for you. Just let me check the chat box. The question is that you can answer this question with yes or no in the chat box. Some people believe that the agile project management methodologies are better than the traditional or waterfall and must replace with them. Or in another word, if you want to promote yourself in the project management system, you have to shift from the waterfall to agile methodologies. Do you agree with this statement or no? Yes or no? Please put in your answer in chat box with yes or no. You can choose by chance if you don't have any idea. Yes or no. My friends, using any agile or waterfall project management, it depends on the characteristic and the environment of your project. If you have the project that is repeatable, or you have done this project before, the similar projects, or roughly, if you have the construction phase in your project, then you are doing the waterfall project. Then you can do and using the waterfall project management style. Or if you have in the complex or complicated project environment, as I explained for you, then the simple environment doesn't work for you. Then you have to shift your methodology from the waterfall to agile project management. Then it depends on the environment, characteristic, and the scale of your project. None of them is good, none of them is bad. Both of them are a tool, and in any situation, a specific tool can be usable. Then both of them are valuable. We don't want to downgrade any of the waterfall or agile because I heard it a lot that the agile is out of fashion. Sorry, the waterfall is out of fashion. You have to move from the waterfall to agile project management. It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong. It depends on the environment of your project. If your project is the waterfall, we don't want to insist to utilize and manage it by the agile project management. But if your project is complex or complicated, then you have to use the agile project management. Let's start the Scrum in the short time. Let me check the time. We have only 10 minutes. I'm trying to sum up my explanation in 10 minutes, and we may consider a time for question and answer. What is the word of the Scrum at first? Look at this style in the rugby play. This style or this movement called as the Scrum. Whole of the team together pushing the other teams and their competitors. This movement called as a scrum in the rugby. And the scrum means this movement in rugby. But a scrum is a most famous framework for managing the agile and project management, not process or organizational management. The Scrum framework, let me show you the standard of the Scrum at first. Sorry, let me exit my PowerPoint. This is the Scrum body of knowledge or Scrum guide and the 20 and 20 version, the latest version. As you can see, the number of the page of the Scrum is only 14 page. The body including 12 page. The body including the 12 page. And this is the lightweight framework that I told you. And look at the PMBOK 6 version. It's including 573 page. And compare it with the Scrum. For sure, the knowledge, the skill, and the information that provided here in PMBOK is not provided in these 12 or 14 pages, but we want to have the more lightweight framework instead of the heavyweight framework and responding to change as soon as possible. Then this is how we want to do in Agile, doing the work in the lightweight framework, and it's constructed based on the agile and lean thinking. As the Scrum introduced itself, it's constructed based on the lean thinking and the agile mindset. Before 2001, that I told you the agile ignited, we had the Scrum, the initial version of the Scrum published in 1995. But after the 2001, the Agile Scrum is one of the accepted framework that match with the Agile mindset and the Agile manifesto. Generally, if we want to look at the Agile, we have the three pillars in Agile. The Scrum. The Scrum roles that including the three roles of product owner, Scrum master, and developer. It means three people, or at least three people, should take this responsibility. The ceremony or events that including the 4 events in the Scrum, the sprint planning, a sprint review, a sprint retrospective, and the daily Scrum meeting, and the artifacts that including the 3 artifacts of the product backlog, a sprint backlog, and increment. Look at this process. I explained briefly the whole process of the Scrum and how the Scrum works in this picture. And this is my latest explanation by considering the time for Scrum. Just have a look on this picture. I'm going to start from the left side. My friends, as I told you, we have the 3 roles of the Scrum Master. It is the person, one person, not a committee. The product owner, it is another person, and the developer who are working to implement the work. This is the group of people. The Scrum team, including less than 10 people, including the Scrum team. Then the developers can be maximum 8 people by considering 1 product owner and 1 Scrum Master. The Scrum team, including whole of the Scrum Master, product owner, and the developers. We call it as the Scrum team. The Scrum team start to plan for the next period of the time. As I told you, this iteration or short period of the time in Scrum called as a sprint. The sprint is a heartbeat of Scrum. For example, if we consider the sprint for 1 week, for 4 weeks, at the beginning of these 4 weeks, the whole of the team gather together and start to talk about their plan for next 4 weeks or next month. This meeting can take 8 hours for a 1 month sprint. And if your sprint is shorter, the duration of a sprint planning meeting uh, will decrease accordingly. The sprint planning has three outputs. The first one is the sprint backlog. It means which feature and the scope of the project is going to be on process or work in the next months. We call it as the sprint backlog. Also, we have a plan for implementing this sprint backlog in next months. Also, we set the goal for our sprint. For example, in next month, what we are going to do or what is our main achievement for the next month called as the sprint goal. Then after having this plan for only 1 month ahead, the team start to develop it and the developers start to working on the sprint backlog. But for internal coordination and communication, the team have a short meeting for 15 minutes every day and talking about what happened yesterday, what I'm doing today, and what is my impediments. If you need more explanation and following meeting, you can postpone it to another meeting, but we keep this meeting, the daily meeting, for 15 minutes. It's called as the daily scrum and the developers attending in daily scrum. Then every day in the same place and at the same time, the developers gather together and do the internal coordination by a short stand-up meeting that called as the daily scrum. We work for 4 weeks, the duration of our iteration, and completed part of the works, and part of the works remained uncompleted, for example. Then the 4 weeks finished, and we finished the first sprint. Then we have two other ceremonies to finish this sprint. The first one is the sprint review. The teams means the developers, product owner, and a scrum master gather together for a 4 hours meeting and talk about what we have done in the last 4 weeks. You may do the demo for your customer here, and you may present the fulfilled part of the product to your customer. If it is usable, you will hand over right now to your customer to start utilizing the product. Or if it's need another features to add it, you add it to the increment, one of the output of your project. Add it to increment and wait for the another sprint to add the feature to your increment and hand over it to your customer. The last but not least event is the sprint retrospective. Again, the team members gather together in 3 hours meeting for a 1 month sprint and talk about their lessons learned, what I have done by mistake, or what I have to stop, what I have to continue, what I have to do more or do less. This is the general attitude of the sprint retrospective, sharing the knowledge and experience about the process, not about the persons. Together, and after having the sprint retrospective, tomorrow morning we will again start another sprint planning, plan for the next month. Continuing with the daily scrum, at the end of the next month, I will have the second sprint review and second sprint retrospective. And again, if it is necessary and the requirement of the customer still remain, I will continue with the third sprint, fourth sprint. I will continue this circle as required. This is what we do and manage the project very briefly in Scrum. Okay, my friends, time is up, unfortunately. I have to back to chat box. If any question or need to explain, please share with me. You can type your, sorry, you can type your question in chat box. I'm checking the chat box right now.
All right, if you have any question, guys, you can type it in the chat box.
Any question? I'm at your service.
Or, okay, if you have any questions later on, you can always send it to info@diss.com.qa. We'll forward it to Mr. Adele and we will get back to you on that question.
No any prerequisite. You can start from, we will start from the scratch, no prerequisite, and explain everything from the scratch. Just let me have a brief introduction on the certificates about the Scrum in 1 minute. Just let me reshare my screen again. We have some certificates that I mentioned, few of them in introduction of myself, PSPO or PSM, and other certificates. This is the certificate that issuing by the Scrum organization. To gain these certificates, you have to know the Scrum and Agile very well, and also you have to pass the exam and question. The certificate is available in 3 levels, and the exam is exclusively online. The duration of the exam is 60 hours, 60 minutes or 1 hour, and in this 1 hour you have to answer 80 questions. It means that you have less than 1 minute for answering each question. And also the passing score is 85%. Out of the 80 questions, you have to answer 68 questions right to pass the exam. The cost of the certificate is 150 and no need to renew the certificate. And the certificate shows that you know the role of the Scrum Master and you can work as the Scrum Master. If you look in the job board of the LinkedIn with the Scrum Master keyword, you will find, I don't know how many works, more than thousands of the positions that need the Scrum Master. And one of the certificates that all the Scrum Master requested to you to have is the professional Scrum Master. They issue the same certificate for the product owner, another role in the Scrum. You have the same scenario for product owner. You have to know the role of the product owner, Scrum framework, and Agile very well. You have to answer the same number of the question in same time, and the cost of the exam is 200 for attempting. And also you can find another certificates in the scrum.org. This is the official website. Yeah, sorry, just back to the question.
Any more questions, guys, that you would like to Mr. Adele to address? All good. I think they're
Okay,
just shy
if
to
everything
to
is clear, I
to
have to
ask.
thank all of you for joining this meeting, and we hope to see you again in another webinar and in our training classes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, Mr. Adele, thank you as well for having us
Welcome.
today, for joining again for our webinar. And thank you everyone, okay, who joined us. And as I mentioned earlier today, I will be sending you an email after this webinar on how to obtain the e-certificate that we have advised you earlier, and also how to get the 30% discount if you would be signing up for the full course on Agile and Scrum. And if you would like to get a copy of the presentation of Mr. Adele, just go ahead and reply to that email and we will be more than willing to, send you a copy or if you have any questions. All right.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, May. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
everyone.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
day.
Have a good
Goodbye.
day. Bye bye.